In the scorching desert of southern Jordan, archaeologists unearthed something strange. In 2008, the remains of an enormous ancient copper mining operation at en-Nahas. Beneath heaps of slag and charred rock, radiocarbon dating placed the industrial activity to the 10th century BCE, the era traditionally assigned to King Solomon. This discovery reignited a question that has haunted historians for centuries. Was Solomon's empire real? The Bible portrays Solomon as the wisest and wealthiest king of Israel, ruling over a vast and united kingdom. But for decades, many scholars treated this image as legend, not history. They saw Solomon as a literary figure, Israel's version of King Arthur. Yet en-Nahas suggested a level of organization and state-level control consistent with real governance. Whether or not Solomon ran this mine, someone clearly did, and it wasn't a group of wandering nomads. Solomon's path to power was anything but peaceful. He wasn't the natural heir. His rise began with a palace coup, orchestrated by his mother Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan, and was secured through ruthless purges. He executed his half-brother Adonijah, removed military commanders, and solidified his rule by eliminating potential threats. The biblical image of the wise king was built on a very real foundation of bloodshed. Once in power, Solomon centralized the kingdom. He divided it into administrative districts, built a standing army, raised taxes, and conscripted labor. His construction projects were massive. A royal palace, government buildings, and most famously, the temple in Jerusalem. The Bible describes these accomplishments in extraordinary terms: gold by the ton, apes and peacocks in his court, silver regarded as worthless. But archaeology tells a different story. Excavations in Jerusalem and elsewhere revealed the kind of monumental architecture or wealth described in the Bible. Cities like Megiddo and Hazor do show signs of large-scale construction gates, stables, and administrative buildings, but dating them precisely is tricky. Some may be a century too late, belonging instead to later kings. Solomon's temple, the centerpiece of his legacy, remains elusive. Its location is believed to lie beneath the modern dome of the rock, preventing excavation. No direct evidence of the temple has been found, but comparisons to similar regional temples, like En-Dara in Syria, suggest the biblical descriptions were architecturally plausible, fitting the style of the time. Even if we can't see the original structure, the idea of the temple helped unify Israelite religion and identity for centuries. Back at Megiddo, Hazor, and Gezer, the architecture seems to point to centralized authority, with matching six-chambered gates that once were confidently linked to Solomon. But newer dating methods cast doubt, suggesting some of the structures might have been built during the 9th century BCE under the Northern Omride dynasty. Still, someone was clearly building on a grand scale during or just after Solomon's time. The copper mines of en-Nahas may be the clearest economic evidence of complex statecraft. Whether Solomon controlled them or not, the presence of smelting centers, labor coordination, and supply chains speaks to a society more sophisticated than previously assumed. Egyptian and Phoenician artifacts found at the site imply international trade and possibly Solomon as participation in broader networks of wealth and power. Yet Solomon remains almost invisible outside the Bible. Egypt and Phoenicia, cultures famous for their inscriptions, make no mention of him. This silence fuels skepticism. Some argue Solomon was a local ruler whose legacy was later exaggerated. Others suggest records were lost, or that Solomon's name simply didn't matter to outside powers. But if he really married an Egyptian princess, as the Bible claims, that would imply extraordinary prestige, an alliance Egypt rarely offered. The Bible also describes Solomon's partnership with Hiram of Tyre. Phoenician craftsmen helped build the temple, and joint maritime ventures supposedly brought back gold, ivory, and exotic animals from far-off lands. Even if these details are embellished, They reflect the historical reality of vibrant trade networks crisscrossing the eastern Mediterranean. Despite the wealth and wisdom attributed to Solomon, his kingdom didn't last. In his later years, the Bible says he tolerated and even promoted foreign gods to appease his many foreign wives. This fractured the religious unity of Israel. Combined with heavy taxes and forced labor, discontent began to simmer, especially in the northern tribes. After Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam refused to ease the burdens. When he threatened harsher rule, 10 tribes broke away, forming the northern kingdom of Israel. Only Judah and parts of Benjamin remained loyal. The great united monarchy, forged under David and Solomon, shattered almost immediately, and it would never be rejoined. This dramatic split raises important questions. Did the united monarchy ever truly exist? Or was it a later invention, written during the divided kingdom or after the exile? Craft a story of past greatness and divine favor? Some scholars believe David and Solomon were real, but ruled only over small territories. Others argue they governed modest but expanding states, which later scribes mythologized into empires. Either way, Solomon's story endured. His name became synonymous with wisdom, not just in Judaism, but also in Christianity and Islam. In Jewish tradition, he was the builder of the first temple. In Christian theology, he foreshadowed Christ, the bringer of peace and divine wisdom. In Islamic lore, he was a prophet who commanded the wind, spoke to animals, and ruled over jinn. Solomon's legend outlived his kingdom. Even without definitive archaeological proof of his empire, his legacy became one of the most powerful cultural symbols in history. He became not just a man, but an idea of ideal kingship, divine favor, and wisdom beyond human limits. And that might be the clearest answer of all. Solomon may not have ruled a golden empire. He may not have had fleets of ships or a throne of ivory. But the traces of economic activity, centralized authority, and monumental ambition all point to something real, however small or imperfect it may have been. The empire may be elusive, but the impact is undeniable.